My dear brothers and sisters, I don't much like making disclaimers at the beginning of a message, but today I felt sort of compelled. Because as you saw there, we're going to be talking about marriage. Now, this should be a very good thing, but as I sat down to write, I had this nagging feeling that I would alienate some of you, offend some others, and probably only bring joy to the hearts of a few. And that's because there are only a handful of us here who might be able to look at marriage with such a heart of joy because we've had 40, 50, 60 years, and we can say, you know what, that battle's pretty much over. We've made it. We're good. And that's really something to be celebrated in this day and age. It is an absolute miracle that has taken place in the lives of some of us. But I also know that as we talk about marriage, there are many of us out in the pew who have gone through a painful divorce. And we carry some of those scars. And there are others who want to be married, and yet, for whatever reason, it has not yet happened that God has placed before you that person to spend the rest of your life. Some of you might be living with someone outside of the bond of marriage. Or you might be sharing intimacy that God has said is reserved only for husbands and wives, and quite frankly, you don't want to hear it from me that what you're doing is wrong and that it's hurting you a lot more than you recognize. And then there are those who are widowed, and it hurts to think about what has been lost. And still there are some in what they describe to their friends or in their thoughts as a loveless marriage. Now, there I think I have covered just about every awkward situation possible. But if I haven't, I'm sorry. But I guess the point is this, that though we're talking about marriage, and not all of us in here are married or even have good thoughts about it, that's really the exact reason we need to hear about it. Because this is a message from God for all of us. And that goes for our youth, too, who sometimes I can imagine, because I've been there myself, come into a place like this and you're tempted to think, what in the world does this have to do with me? Why do my parents drag me along here? I want to assure you this has everything to do with you, young people. And today, if only for today, today is not the day to act like you have to go to the bathroom or to be talking to the person next to you. Because what we're going to be talking about is really going to have a dramatic effect on your future, a bright future that I hope you know God has for you. But here's the thing. The reason why we're talking about this is because it's integral to God's story in the Bible, but also because I believe, and I think experiences will back it up, that we have an absolute marriage and family crisis in America today. And I think this crisis is much more of a threat to our future and security than any economic recession that we hear about incessantly on the news. But I also believe that there is great, great hope in Christ. He has the power to change everything. And so I do want to say real quickly, if you're somebody here who's been divorced and you hear from me today that that's not really what God wanted from you, because of what Christ has done, I come with a word of grace and hope and healing and forgiveness, not condemnation. And for those of you who've maybe got some skeletons in your past or who haven't done it the right way, what we're going to be laying out is how good the picture can be if we're living in God's way. And we know that if we seek His power, He will transform our homes and our lives. But I guess the truth of the matter is, and I probably could have saved us a number of minutes already, is that we don't need all of these disclaimers if we really get the point today. If we really get to the heart of the matter. Because, yes, I'm going to be talking about marriage. But in reality, this is a message about God's design for this world. and of his perfect love for us. And he uses marriage because it's so foundational to his story. It is something that God uses to let us in on the desires of his heart. And it shows us how much he cares for us. And then when we get that, it changes how much we care for others. And that's why it's a sad thing to feel somewhat uncomfortable talking about it. But the truth is I am, and all of us are at times, because we know how horribly damaged relationships can become in our day and age. How heartbroken God must be. I know that some of you come here with terrible pain because of circumstances that have happened in your past that have been out of your control. And you know how broken a heart can become. And you need healing. And then there are others who, if you took a moment to really get real, you'd say, I'm the one who's caused all that damage and all that pain. And when you do that, you're going to realize now, finally, you are ripe for the healing that God can give. See, I guess one thing we could do, and sometimes this is what happens amongst church people, is that we can just lament the state of relationships and of the world and say, woe is me and woe is us, and shake our heads in judgment at those who are worse off than us so that we can feel better about ourselves. Or what we could do is get offended by anything that might make us have to reflect a little bit on our lives and where we've fallen short. And effectively, we can try to rewrite his story so that we don't have to experience any sort of discomfort or pain. Or we can figure that this is just the way things are. There's always going to be people who break up. Stuff happens. It can't be avoided. And we can just try to go on with our lives. Or his story can change our stories. That's what we're going to strive for today, because his story is very, very deeply concerned with marriage and with all of our relationships. You know, we see it weaved all